People of Earth, we come in peace.
Welcome to this neighborhood, neighbor.
I am the Martian ambassador.
Des Moines and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Mac's World Live. Mac's World is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Mac's World. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Mac's World Live, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, 7 minutes after 4 o'clock, 28th day of December. This show is live today on this Monday. We're going to be, Frank, you're going to be live tomorrow. And then the team will be back on Wednesday. And my special guest will be Father Adam Westfall, who's a young Catholic priest, and he ran it up the flagpole within the Catholic diocese that he could be a regular contributor on the show because I want to learn more about Catholicism. So we're looking forward to that on Wednesday. And then we'll be off for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and back next week. Basically, I can say see you next year. And don't forget, Testify will be a week from this Wednesday at the Pizza Ranch in Urbandale. And our special guest will be John Severinsen, and he's going to give his testimony. And he's also going to talk about the relationship or lack of that he has or had with his daughter and how Jesus erected that and corrected it. All right, well, I gotta claim I got fooled. I read a story. I printed up a story today about Desert Storm Commander, retired General H. Norman Schwarzkopf, how he had passed away Thursday in Tampa, Florida. Well, what somebody on the internet so nicely reminded me was, yeah, that was true 3 years ago. And I got to be honest with you. I went back and looked at the story that I had. It came up on the top of Google that he had passed away last Thursday. So my apologies to my listeners. I really try to do a better job than that. I got caught, so shame on me. I'll do a better job for you, I promise. But when I'm wrong, I'll tell you. You won't have to wonder whether I know I'm wrong. You be sure to tell me when you think I'm wrong. But when I'm wrong, I'll tell you. That's what Jesus does for me. You know, it kind of says it's all okay. All right, I want to introduce you to Paul. Paul is my favorite type of guest because he's a listener. I like having the pastors, the preachers, the teachers, the politicians, the experts. I like all those people. But the people I like the most on the radio are listeners because their agenda is none. They have a passion. I asked Paul when we and I talked the other day, what are you passionate about? And he rattled off what he was passionate about. That's what I want people sharing on the radio. Yeah, maybe it's not as exciting as having Ted Cruz on or some of the other hot dogs we've had on or Luke Tim and his gun world and Michael Damastis and all those guys. But I think what Paul has to offer is as valuable as any preacher or teacher. And that is his experience at a local mosque at 63rd and Franklin. You went there twice.
Twice.
And spent 8 hours both times.
Correct.
Wow. All right, first of all, you're from Gilbert, Iowa.
Correct.
Spent 15, 16 years in the Navy.
15, yep.
All right. And now you live here with your wife and family?
Correct.
And we're glad to have you here.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
I thank you again.
All right. So you're a Jesus freak like me.
Yes.
And what made you decide to read about or to pick up a copy of the Quran and read it?
Well, that started around 1983. I was took a deployment and spent a lot of time in the Mediterranean. So in around Egypt,
Okay.
and in that area. I spent a lot of time in Lebanon and things like that. So
This was in the Navy.
Correct.
All right. And so you started to read the Quran. Now, were you a big fan of Jesus at that time too?
Well, my father thought I was going to be a pastor by the time I was 12 or 13 years old. That kind of blew apart when I left home at 16, entered the Navy, and then kind of fell away from a lot of it then.
Yeah.
I never completely actually did, but I studied a little bit, but I got to be a little bit of a heathen too when I was in the service.
Sure. Yeah, we all are. Frank's still a heathen. He just doesn't know it.
He's got long hair, so he could be a
Yeah.
heathen.
See, I mean, I'm just telling you. You know, I went and got all my hair cut off since my done playing Santa Claus. But the girl said, I'm going to leave the back of your hair long in case you decide to grow a ponytail just like Frank's.
Yeah, right.
So we cut it off quickly. Before we talk about your visit to the mosque, what was your goal in walking over there?
My issue was I wanted to find out, back in '83, I wanted to find out about the people I'm going to be, either be in combat with or
protecting. In
'83, we actually did a lot of protection. We evacuated a small group of people that were surrounded in Lebanon, and I got to meet a family, Lebanese family. When I got back to the States, I met up with the family again. Actually, it's a 5-year-old girl that she sat next to me on the flight deck, and I met her again in Virginia. She ran up to me when I was going to a movie theater. And I didn't recognize the parents, but I recognized her.
Yeah.
The parents are a little scared, but we basically shook hands and moved on. But that little girl was probably the most memorable issue I had there.
Yeah. So you wanted to find out about these people you were either going to be in combat with or you were protecting. And you what did you discover in the readings of the Quran back? Well, this would be, 40 years ago almost?
This almost be 40 years ago, correct. What I'd found out in a period of time is the way Islam got started actually happened to be from the fall of Christianity and the fall of Judaism. Unfortunately, that's what happened. When Muhammad got started there, Christianity was falling apart. They were adopting things like deifying Mary. That's their understanding of the Trinity, of God the Father, and Mary and Jesus. That was their understanding of their Trinity. So when I got to go to the mosque, the first question they asked happened to deal with the Trinity and how I could explain it. So I'd go to different churches and ask, can you explain it to me? And then I'd get all kinds of everything thrown out once, and it's supposed to be easy. I was under the impression this is going to be an easy situation to discuss, but the more I heard it, the more convoluted it got. Now, the God that I serve is supposed to be one that's supposed to make things easy and uncomplicated. So I took it upon myself to learn as much as I could, both from the Jewish aspect, because we're rooted as Christians in the Jewish tradition. That was my thought. If Christ said that he's if the God the Father's the root and he's the stem, that we're the branches off that. So going to that concept is where I started from. So that's what I did. I went to understand exactly who the Creator was, and it got down to the question I asked a lot of people is, who was the guy that created Adam? And everybody goes, well, God did. Well, is it the spiritual God, the Father, or was it the Holy Spirit, or was it Christ himself? And as I read through the New Testament, I believe it was Christ himself that actually knelt down in the dirt, formed up Adam, likened him to himself, and that was the image of Adam.
But finish that text out. What did he do? He breathed
the breath of the Holy Spirit. He breathed the breath of life into him, making him a soul.
He breathed breath, and he became a living soul.
A living soul, correct, yes.
So he wasn't a soul until Christ breathed. So,
correct.
So breath and soul could be...
The pneumos that's...
can be compared as air, oxygen,
correct.
CO2.
Right. The word that's used in the Greek is called pneumos, or air, where we get the word spirit from. So, yes. Pneumatics, if you will, is the expression there. So, well, the guys in the mosque kind of got that one because they said everybody's made of clay, and even Jesus was made of clay. Well, yeah. If Mary was human, just like Adam, then she was made of clay. She was the vessel that God used. And I said, okay, I can go with that. So the spirit that was breathed in there, or in this, they used the word logos, spoken, where God said, let it be, and it was. That'd be I can go with that. I wasn't going to argue with that. But I said that'd be the Spirit of God creating a living being. Oh, okay. They got that. I said it had nothing to do with Mary herself. She's in the line of Adam. She wasn't part of the Trinity, if you will. And so that was now a physical body and a spirit now. And when Jesus grew up, he grew up with the mind of God, having the idea and concept and doing everything that the Father would have had done. So, and Jesus testified that I'm only going to do what my Father does. And that's how I explained the Trinity, to make it as clean and as short as I could.
Did they debate that issue with you? Did they feel that their way of thinking about the Trinity was right and yours was wrong?
No, they. When I explained it to them like that, they could. The people I spoke with kind of understood that. I said to bypass the Mary situation. That has nothing to do with the Trinity whatsoever. None at all. Other than
where do you think they get that?
That would have been the Catholic Church.
Okay.
Some of the Catholic Church deified Mary, making it what they call a immaculate conception, where she herself was descended from God.
But I would contend to you, without the doctrine or dogma of the immortal soul, that's the things in which eternal torment, universalism, hood, etc., spiritualism has been built on the foundation of the immortal soul. You take that card out as the foundation, pinning those false dogmas up, those all fall. Because you can't have eternal torment unless you have an immortal soul. You can't have universalism without an immortal soul.
Well, when you're talking about...
Well, I'm going to ask you to hold on just a second.
Okay.
You'll hear the music in your headphones. We're coming up on a break.
Okay.
Bob is here. Brent Westman is here. Grace Like Rain. Want you guys to have... Just, stick your foot in there. And we'll continue this conversation. Paul's here. Spent hours and hours in a local mosque learning about them and them learning about him. We'll talk more about that conversation and more coming up live here on The Truth, 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
"21 after 4 o'clock, 421, 28th day of December in the Lord's year 2015, just about to 16. It's kind of strange today. I was talking on the phone with a business thing I'm doing, and we started talking about 2016. Closing in 2016. I just can't believe it's 20. I don't know. I'm probably, no, you're younger. You're obviously younger than I am, but I think everybody else in here is older than I am. How old are you?
I don't know.
You don't know.
53.
What are you, a woman? You don't know your age?
No. I honestly don't. I don't keep track of that, believe it or not.
You don't?
I think I'm around 53. I was born in 63.
Okay, so yeah, that would make you the same. 2016, that just seems, Star Trek-ish.
Yeah.
What year were you born, Brent?
77.
Oh, I graduated from college. We're not that far apart then.
No.
17 years.
Yeah.
Would you, Brent, walk into a mosque?
Sure.
With a Quran and a Bible and sit and talk to him?
I'd walk in, with the Bible, yeah.
Yeah?
Sure.
You wouldn't walk in with a Quran, though, if you were studying it?
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Bob?
Wouldn't bother me.
Never thought about it.
See, I've thought about it. I think Paul's kind of a neat guy. That's kind of one of the things that attracts me to him. I used to live over in that area. And I've always wanted to just go walk in and talk to him. And I had it on 98.3 when I did that show some time ago. But, and I'm not going to, this is not a judgment about anybody other than that one person.
Right.
But I just didn't believe that guy.
Well, in order to do any apologetics, if you want to do that, or hermeneutics in the Bible at all, you have to take whatever book anybody's going to give you to study it. So if I want to learn, and I wanted to find out when it got started and what their dogma is.
He's giving me all the literature. I'll just give it to you.
Well, I understand. No, from the age of 5 to 10, I was in a Seventh-day Adventist. My father was a farmhand, so whatever church was available to us, we'd go there.
So did you go to Ames?
Yes. Right there off Duff Avenue.
Are you familiar with Oak Park Academy? Camp meetings, etc., that were held in Nevada, Iowa?
No, the one we went to, I don't know too much about. So
that was 50 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I'm 58. He's only 5 years junior of me.
But I remember going to church on Saturday when everybody else was out running around, and then the guy that was our pastor, he sold eggs to us. So my father and him got along pretty good because he was a farmhand, so he could relate to all that. And I got along fine. I thought it was kind of a cool church. That's about all I know. Yeah. I used to run around there, so that's it.
All right. Now, Paul is my guest. He's in the mosque at 63rd and Franklin, talking with these people. And the first thing you did was you tried to they tried to tell you that Mary was part of the Trinity, and you said, no, here's how it works.
According to the Quran, the way it's written in there, also the Hadith, there's three particular books that they, and I use that term loosely, because the Sharia law is the one that everybody's hearing about now. And that's the actual dogma that anybody's a Muslim or practices the Islamic faith. It doesn't make a difference. Most liberal, easygoing. You have to follow the Sharia law. I mean, that's all there is to it.
All right, now, do me a favor and give me a comparison in Christianity. If you're going to be a Muslim, you have to follow Sharia law.
Correct.
If you're going to be a Christian, you have to...
If you're a Christian, you're going to follow the whole Bible, Old Testament and New Testament. These things have to agree. The Quran was written during the time Muhammad was alive.
Now,
this would have been about around 500-600.
Or 5, I'm sorry.
That's okay. the only problem is Muhammad couldn't read nor write. He was illiterate. And they confirmed that at the mosque. So when he would speak something, the word Quran means to recite or to speak. It doesn't mean to read or write. So that was fine that he was telling everybody these things, but somebody got in their idea, hey, we need to write these things down so we can pass it on to the next person. Small problem with that. You can't read nor write. How do you know what's being written? All the books that we read in the Bible, those authors, and those, it was mandated by Jewish law to where everybody had to know to read or write. Is that correct?
Sure.
That was absolute, because everybody at the end of the year had to go and read the particular scripture they had at the particular times. Christ even himself had to read or write. And that was one of the contentions that were out there. He wrote the book of Isaiah.
Christ continually said, have you not read? It is written.
Exactly. It was mandated in Jewish law to everybody had to read or write. They had to understand the law.
Who did you say wrote the book of Isaiah?
Oh, well, Isaiah may have written the book of Isaiah.
Okay.
Jesus, when he was 12, I think, was actually reading Isaiah at that time frame. And then again, I think when he was 20, I want to say it was somewhere around there, but he read a particular passage on there about who he was, his ministry.
Isaiah 53.
I don't remember exactly what he was reading, but he read that in there, talking about himself particularly.
Right, because then he said he fulfilled it.
Yeah, he fulfilled the prophecy.
When Muhammad he knew he was uneducated, he made sure that people knew how to read or write. The only problem is he didn't make sure himself knew how to read or write.
Okay, so what you're saying is, potentially, if I'm hearing you, everything that was ascribed to Muhammad may not really be what Muhammad said.
Exactly. Some of the stuff that's been written was about 100 years ago. Sharia law particularly.
Written way after his death.
That was almost 200 years after he died. Now, the guy was incredible, but...
All right.
You know.
So you said three things. They have to believe the Quran, they have to believe Sharia law, and...
Now, the Hadith is a little bit different. It's the workings that Muhammad had done. Now, depending on whether you're Shia or Sunni, two key denominations, for lack of a better word, they're the two. Now, one adopts Quranic law, the other one adopts Hadith law, but they both have to practice in how they interpret Sharia law.
And those two don't get along.
No, they do not.
In case you don't follow the Middle East, they don't get along.
What doesn't get along?
The Sunni and the Shiites.
Shia, yep.
They don't. The Shia.
And the Sunnis are... All right, just back up and tell me that again. The Sunnis are what law?
Well, they both practice Sharia law. It's just how they interpret it from the Hadith or the Quran.
Yeah. Some people explain it. I think the Sunni would be more of the... If you read the Quran, there's elements that say it's peaceful, and then there's elements that say it's, kill the guy kind of thing, not peaceful, right? The Sunni would fall more on the peaceful side, whereas the Shiite would fall more on...
That's not necessarily true either. It has to... They both have to... One actually has to deal with the political side of it, and the other one have to do with the religious side. A good example, Iran... probably going to butcher this up, but I think they're Sunni.
Yeah, I think so.
And they're predominantly political. Okay? The ISIS and all that on there is Shia, I think.
Yep.
And they're predominantly going with the guy, I can't think is Alibaba. Just for
Baghdadi, yeah.
Baghdadi. Yeah. He's more of a religious leader. So at some point in time, this is going to be their eschatology. At some point in time, there's going to be a religious leader that's a political leader that's going to, and they consider him the Dajjal or the Antichrist, is going to come up out of there. And they believe that that's either going to be a Jew, Christian, or Muslim that's going to be combining that together. And that's due to come out just before Christ returns.
Paul is our guest today, former Navy man. Lives here in Des Moines, originally from Gilbert, you said, and a great studier and lover of Jesus, and spent 16 hours on 2 different days at a local mosque, 63rd and Franklin. And Paul called in the other day and shared that with us. And I said, I want my listeners to hear this. So that's what Paul's doing here today, and I appreciate that. Now, is it fair to say, and Brent, I want you to stick your toe into the water here too. So if a non-believer of Jesus wants to make Christianity or the Bible sound horrible, they'll go to Leviticus, or they'll go somewhere where you can stone them, and if the woman does this, you can beat her, and they can die and cut your hand off, and da-da-da-da-da. Is it the same thing then in the Quran, where if you want to find that in the Bible, you can find it?
Well,
if you want to find it in the Quran, you can find it?
On that kind of situation, you got to pull the ponies back. The reason I'm going to go to the Seventh-day Adventists is because most of those guys know the Old Testament law, okay? Now, just throwing it out there, was it legal in the Old Testament law to stone a woman for adultery?
Yes.
No. That's almost.
Well, the husband had to bring forth the charges.
But who got stoned? Could a woman commit adultery by herself?
No.
So that means the person that she committed adultery with had to have been stoned with her.
That's right. And that's what Christ was pointing out when he started writing in the sand.
Excellent.
Most of all those people that were had slept with her, and in fact, I believe it was Simon who actually put her into that adulterous relationship, because Christ said, "Who do you forgive the most?" And Simon said, "Well, probably the one you forgive the most." And he says, "Thou judgest well, Simon."
That's the correct thing there. According to the laws of God, according to Moses, that a person cannot sin by themselves. Either they did it. A good example of that would have been
right
when he had taken in the book of Joshua, where he had taken stuff from Jericho and put into his house. Everybody in that house knew that the sin that was done.
But what they were trying to do is they was trying to trap Jesus by not holding up Mosaic law or proclaiming to be able to forgive sin, which they would held him as a blasphemer. So he done neither. He found a solution to thwart their plans by outing them, so to speak, with this woman. So they cast their stones aside, and he didn't have to be caught in their dilemma.
Well, that's what I said. In Sharia law, it's not quite cut and dry like that. The woman can, well, especially what you see in the ISIS situation right now, that's a heretical teaching no matter what it is. It's what Christ would call a Nicolaitan kind of law, where it's just a law of condemning somebody or doing things like that, or utilizing the to abuse or take over somebody. Well, that's exactly what they're doing over there. They'll either marry somebody and then divorce them, and then the next person will take over. As long as they're married, they're not committing any sin, so be a temporary marriage, and that's in the Sharia law.
All right, so Brent, jump in here. Try to break this down for me. So, do you agree with my statement that you can find horrible killing, murdering laws in the Bible, just like you can find in the Quran? For it's about whether you take this side or that side, or take the overall Bible.
Yeah, there's certainly a picking and choosing. If you were going to look at, you can look at the Old Testament and say, that's not a God I want to follow.
Right.
If you just pick out some certain verses and don't see what I would call the big picture, the whole picture, you can most certainly say, when the Noah thing, he killed everybody.
Yeah.
When they went to the Israelites, when they went to another city they were invading, they killed everybody a lot of times and left nobody alive, kind of thing. And you could certainly find a ton of verses that suggest that. But that's why we read the whole book and the whole story,
and we know the whole thing.
And that's where a lot of people they'll pull out and pick and choose.
Right. All right, we're going to take our break. We're going to come back. More about the conversation. I think you're coming back, Cowboy. I don't think we're going to get through those 16 hours. Next 20 minutes, but we'll do our best here live on The Truth. And thanks for listening.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer. I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the service manager,
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring patients.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning, you'll get one phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody over that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're going to make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
All right, 22 minutes for the top of the hour. Salem Radio Network News at the top, and then Hank, the Bible Answer Man, live nationwide. 1-888-ASK-HANK. If you're going to get into the show, I would recommend that you call now. Don't call from a land. Well, that's a toll-free number, so you're okay. Yeah, 1-888-ASK-HANK. But because if you count the number of calls he can take in the show, it averages about 12 to 14. So if you want to get in and you want to ask a question, now's the time to call. 1-888-ASK-HANK. Brent Westman is here along with Bob Monsterette and, of course, Frank. My special Ryan's producing. My special guest today is Paul, who decided out of curiosity to go over to a local mosque here in Des Moines, 63rd and Franklin, and just sit down with these folks and talk about some of the stuff that he had some concerns about. And it went so well the first time. After 8 hours, you went back and did it again a second 8 hours. So you obviously felt safe, comfortable among friends.
I didn't worry about my safety.
Okay.
Like I said, I knew from 1983 what their law states, and as long as if you want to go this route, as long as the United States has more of us than them, they'll be peaceful. But as soon as, according to their law, whenever they get the upper hand, they're to take control.
Now, is this what these guys in the mosque told you, or is this what you learned by reading the book?
Well, that's why I know their laws. I had to know the laws before I went over there. So, yes.
Because you served in the Navy and you went over and served there.
Well, when Mike Ahmed was here, I made the point that Muslims are 1.6 billion people in the world. And from the population standards, the Muslims and the Hispanics are the largest growing groups. Whites, Asians, and blacks are barely keeping up with their death rates. So Muslims is having an average of about 5 per kid. So it fits into what you're saying. The world lasts long enough Sharia law is going to get foisted on the world whether we like it or not.
It's already being implemented. Even there Muslims are becoming part of our populace by election, if you want to go that route.
Yeah, I just saw a New York federal judge was sworn in with a Quran.
Yeah, so all that's already taken place.
Well, it's a Trojan horse. My dad told me when I was a young guy, everything that eventually tries to destroy you is going to destroy you from within. So whether it's communism, whether it's Satan infiltrating into the church, no matter what it is, the threat's going to come from within.
Well, 1 out of 12 in Jesus' own crew was the devil himself. Sure. So yeah, and he knew that when he's going in there. So that's our mindset has to be on something like that.
Brent?
I do have a question, and I don't want to run out of time before I give a question. I kind of went through a journey similar to this, as far as reading the Quran and wanting to know the enemy well, so to speak. And I got about through 3 chapters, 3 books, whatever you want to call it, and I read the English translation because I don't speak Aramaic, but there was a verse in there that said, "And you know God hates Christians and Jews."
Correct.
Right? And I was like. The light came on there. Who hates Christians and Jews? If we read our Bibles, right? Who's the number one hater of that, right?
Accuser.
So it brought me back to Muhammad, who got the vision from an angel, right? According to him. But what is Satan? A fallen angel, right?
He's
so
angel light, yeah.
And I literally dropped what I just like. I'm done reading this. I got this down. It doesn't matter what happens next. In your reading of the Quran, do you have moments similar to that, or as far as as well as you know the Bible, and then your relationship with Christ? Where does that?
When I did that, I was studying with people who are Islamic or Muslim that have become Christians. So they had gone through the process of explaining to me what these verses were, where you're going to find them in the Bible, and how they've been corrupted. Okay.
Sure.
Now, if Muhammad could neither read nor write, somebody could corrupt something for him and tell him one thing and do something else. That's my fervent belief on that. So he's going to do what he felt was the right thing to do because of his counsel that he had at that time frame. That's what I was going with there. So,
and the other thing that came to me is, if the God of their Bible hates Christians and Jews, how do you think their followers are going to react towards those people? If the God that they follow feels that way about those people, how would
let's listen. Does Jesus hate Jews?
No.
Does Jesus hate Christians?
No.
Well, he was going to discipline his own flock.
Okay. Does he hate hypocrisy?
Yes.
So if you claim to be a Jew or a Christian or Muslim or something like that, and you're committing hypocrisy apart from the laws of God, does God hate you?
He hates the behavior. God doesn't hate anyone.
Well, see, that's what I'm saying.
And you can go with like Jacob and Esau. Mm-hmm. Right? Jacob he loved, Esau he hated, right? So you can, that's in the Bible. So
does God have malicious hatred toward anybody? No, he does not. No. Does God hate the person that's sinning? Yes. If a person does not repent, once they've had it, then they become an enemy of God. And God will do everything he can to teach somebody to do something. He sent Moses to change Pharaoh's heart. He sent Moses to witness after Pharaoh. But God had told Moses, Pharaoh will not change. He'll become a hypocrite and he'll die. He'll harden his heart. And then after I continue to keep doing it, he's going to be hardened even more. Anybody in the right mind would not run into a big old sea of water that's standing up on edge. But his heart was so hardened, he bypassed reason and killed himself.
My conviction tells me that God hates sin. He abhors sin, but he loves the sinner. He died for the sinner. In fact, I don't believe God has any real hate for Lucifer, but he definitely hates what he's become, the behavior he exhibits, and he won't suffer with him long, but he won't suffer forever.
Okay, when I use the word hatred, it has to do with the context of God's remembering. When Jesus in the context of things, once a person chooses unrighteousness and dies in that sin, they're no longer remembered anymore. Depart from me, ye cursed.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.
That kind of concept is, I'm not going to remember that. You're not there, as if you never existed. It's not the hatred in the context of maliciousness. Allah, is a malicious God. He goes out of his way to put the thumb screws to somebody. Even the Talmudic Jewish traditions teach that same thing, and some Christians also.
Well, the Jews felt that sin, disease, sickness, etc., was some punishment by God for something you had done wrong in your lifetime, by your parents, by you. So they felt that God was an oppressor, basically.
Correct. Exactly, and that's not what God teaches. Especially when he went to heal the blind man that had been blind for 40 years, Bartimaeus, who sat there at the street corner there. He was born blind, and God said, neither the parents nor this man sin. It's to show the glory of God. That goes into a whole different aspect of, I think Pastor Nedbud that taught over there had put a sign up, had to do with homosexuality or gaiety, and I talked about being born a certain way, that God can do the healing on something like that if a person claims they're born that way, that kind of thing, which leads into something different, but that's the context I'm going with.
Paul is our guest today. He's a listener who spent a couple days over at the mosque here in Des Moines talking with the imam and some of the other people. Now, we're going to run out of time. We've got 1 minute left until our next break, and then we'll come back with just a few minutes. So I kind of want to scoot this ahead for the listeners who maybe won't tune in the next time or aren't able to, or whatever the case may be. You found these people nice?
Yes. They're the people I talked to the first time, most of them were come from Bosnia.
Okay.
So they're
and what are their feelings about the terrorists, the fascists?
Well, none of that had happened. The second time when it was after 9/11, the other time was just before that.
Okay.
So that's what I said. When you don't have, and according to the gentleman that was here before, you do not have. Everybody has to adhere to the Sharia law, so there is no moderate anything.
Well, now, but I've heard. Well, here we're going to stop here because we break at 48, right? All right, let's take this break, and then we'll be back and we'll finish up with Paul here live on The Truth, 99.3.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
All right, 10 minutes for the top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News, and then Hank, the Bible man, Answer Bible Man, 1-888-ASK-HANK. Paul is our guest today. Now, we were saying off air, and I want to catch everybody up, that there's no such thing as a moderate Muslim.
It's an impossibility to be a moderate Muslim.
Well, but
it'd be a sign of hypocrisy to be a moderate Muslim.
Well, but isn't that the same? Isn't moderate Muslim the same as a cultural Christian?
Well, it'd be your seeker-friendly Christian that doesn't have any particular
no relationship.
Yeah, that's called hypocrisy, and God will spew those out. It's called the Church of Laodicea, I think.
So do you think that Muslims are more committed to be all in than Christians are committed to be all in?
The Sharia law, in order for a person to get to heaven in Islamic faith, the Sharia law is the pathway, is what it said. That's what Sharia means, the pathway, the direction to heaven. So if you're not going to practice that, you're not going to get to heaven.
But isn't Christianity the same?
No, the pathway that we teach, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. I am the path of righteousness. Even in the Old Testament, Jehovah, the path of righteousness. It is a process of repentance in relationship to the laws of God.
Okay, let me ask you a point-blank question. Is Islam, in your opinion, a religion of peace?
No. Not by its. Not by.
Ahmed said the same thing.
By Sharia law, it is not a religion of peace. Now, can you go through the Quran and find salvation in Christ? Yes. I went through verse by verse to do that. But the problem is you're going to have to ignore some of the things that are in there, because some of the things either Muhammad did not say or he was a schizophrenic. He said two things at once. And you can't, that's hypocrisy. So it's either one way or the other.
But I'm not debating or arguing with you, Paul.
I understand that.
But understand that Christians are just as hypocritical as Muslims.
Exactly. And you'll go to the same place just for the same hypocrisy.
All right. Now, I've also been told that Sharia law can't exist within the Constitution of the United States.
It's an impossibility.
Then why should we worry about Sharia law being implemented in America?
It's already here.
Detroit.
But
you pick any major city. Here's the problem. Here's what you have as Western Islam. Western Islam is nothing more than people that go to prison, learn a little bit of Islamic faith. A good example is the Nation of Islam. Louis Farrakhan, he teaches a lot in prisons and stuff like that. Heightens up a lot of emotional people that are criminals already, and a lot of the guys that attacked in New York, the ones that took the hatchet and everything else like that. I call that Prislam. That's prison Islam. That's, I want something here in the United States, and I'll use violence to get it and equal something like that.
Well, let me ask this and see if you agree or disagree. To my understanding, biblical writers were inspired by God, but they did not dictate word for word what the Spirit or what God said. It was in their own words, their own language. Now, according to what I've read about Islam, the angel Gabriel, these were words that were supposedly written verbatim, or not verbatim, but dictated exactly the way Gabriel expressed them. That's what I understand. Is that your knowledge of it, or?
Well, anytime a prophet, according to the laws of Moses, anytime a prophet come out and said, thus says the Lord, it has to work that way. Otherwise, that prophet gets stoned to death. Okay? So the prophecy, this is one of the things I'm studying now, and I dropped off the paperwork to you that I'm just starting to work on now, is Islamic eschatology. And I believe that we're in the time frame, they're talking about in Islam, 2022 is when Islam and the Ottoman Empire was decimated. Actually, the Caliph was actually done away with after World War II. Well, they want to reclaim that by 2022. They said that's when the Christ is supposed to return.
Now, I asked Mike Ahmed the same thing. Are you saying caliphate when you say?
Caliph is the second. It'd be the second coming, if you will. That's the after Muhammad. So that'd be the caliph that's coming out now would be the rise of the second Ottoman Empire, if you want to call it that.
All right, let me back up and because I don't want to lose this before we run out of time. You affirmed to me one of the things that I had been told was that Sharia law can't exist within the Constitution of the United States.
Correct.
But yet you say we have Sharia law in America now in different places.
Exactly. Well,
how I don't understand that.
Okay, according to Islam, you have to be a subject to something. You have to be under some sort of rule. Freedom and things like that, from the perspective of Islam, if you're free here, and you can testify to that by just looking out the window, freedom here means sin.
Okay.
Okay, that's exactly what it means. God gives grace, and a lot of churches teach this too, that, well, we're not under the law, we're under grace. I don't know. At some point in time, I'm going to die. I'm under that law of Abraham, or Adam was under. I'm going to die someday. That's a given. That's a fact. Okay? Or I'll be transformed in a way to God. But a lot of people abuse, especially in the churches, abusing that grace that God's given. Paul talks about that a lot in Romans and Corinthians, where people abuse that.
Bob calls it hyper grace.
Hyper grace?
Yeah, that's not me, but that's a term that's used for, once you accept the Lord, you're under this grace and you can just live your life any way you want.
Okay, yep, I've heard that before.
That's hyper grace.
Yep.
But that would be a cultural Christian, not a relationship-based Christian.
That's hypocrisy Christianity.
Brett, we're about running out of time. I want to make sure you came in here today and spent some time.
I got my
with
words
us.
in already, I think.
Huh?
I just wanted
my piece.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to mention here, I'm just looking at Wikipedia, but it says, in its strictest definitions, Sharia is considered in Islam as the infallible law of God.
Yep.
So if you look at Christianity, the Ten Commandments is the law that we follow too. So how do we use that and live within our nation following biblical law? Because that's what they're doing.
Well, I just hope that the low information voter, the progressive, the Democrats, whatever you want to call them, are as hardcore against Sharia law as they are against Mosaic law.
Well, if I remember the Old Testament correctly, God will allow foreign nations to come through as they did during Israel's day. They will come in and they will destroy anything that the far left, whatever, wants to call as their own.
All right. Thank you for coming in today. Did you have fun?
Oh, yeah, I had a lot of fun.
Good. Look forward to having you back again. Frank, you're going to have to do the show all by yourself tomorrow. Is that the plan? Brent, thanks for coming in. You're welcome anytime now that you know where we're at. Just don't speed. Just don't speed. And Bob, you take care of your grandchild tomorrow, okay? Forget about Frank. Frank doesn't need you. All right. I'm J. Michael McCoy. Thank you for listening. As I always say at the end of the show, and more important than ever before, remember that as you forgive, you shall be forgiven. I'll see you in church.